Hello, everyone. Welcome to HOSERS, a hockey podcast. It's episode 125. I'm your host, Thomas, joined by Chris and Carter, as always. And today we have a special guest, RL, from Elite Prospects, Puck Soup, Ryan Lambert. How's it going, man?
Chilling. How about you guys?
Yeah.
Doing well.
Pretty good.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, we are so excited to get you on and kind of get your thoughts on the deadline. I'm sure you'll have them. You already put pen to paper, but yeah, like just go over kind of everything that's gone on the hectic week of the trade deadline. I'm sure a billion podcasts have already kind of dissected every move. So this is like everyone's going to be listening to this maybe a little too late and have heard every take that's possible, but maybe we'll get some new ones. But yeah, I thought just before we get started, of course, oh shit, actually no. Let's start the show proper. How about that? Let's start the show proper.
Go. So like take off to the great white north. Beauty. Take off. It's a beauty way to go. Jeez. Take off, you hosers.
Why'd that cut off early?
Thomas, you know what movie that's from?
It's Bob and Doug McKenzie. I don't know where it's from, but Chris explained it to me.
Well, I think for me, it's been 7 years and we still rush through the intro. Like, I thought we would have nailed that by now, but...
What do you mean rush?
We'll work on it. It's all good. We're good.
What do you mean rush? I mean, it's been 7 years and we have 125 episodes. It's not...
Okay, quality, not quantity. Quality, not quantity.
The real reason that we brought Ryan onto the podcast today is to tell him that we all met at a Puck Soup live recording in Toronto before you were a part of the podcast.
Wow.
Mind you. But that's how most of this all got going. Yeah, dude.
Sorry. I'm actually trying to remember that. I know that there was a... Yeah, was it
Greg? Yeah, dude. Greg and Lozo did an episode in Toronto shortly before Lozo left, and then Greg... Who is on? Were you on right after Lozo left, Ryan? Am I getting the timeline right?
I think this is like 5 years ago, so I might be getting some details wrong, but I think it was like they took a month off and then we restarted it with me and McIndoe.
Yes, that's right. So we had to get an influence on. We've been longtime Puck Soup listeners for a long time. Even
my apologies.
Hey, we're having fun. Although I will say that most of the fun stuff gets saved for the Patreon, which I respect. But yeah, man, really happy to have you. It's good to have you on tonight.
Appreciate you guys asking me. I known Thomas especially for a good while now, and we're homies. I feel like so happy to come definitely on.
Excellent.
We won't bog down this episode with too much wrestling chat, but
maybe you can see that's Terry Funk over my shoulder right there. I got the Terry Funk record from Japan.
You still have that All Japan one too, right?
Oh
Did
yeah,
you get that one. The sound, like the themes.
It's right next to it. Yeah,
that's so sick.
Yeah, man. Gotta go on Discogs, you know.
We maybe we should kick things off with the viral video that I might be late to the party on this, but are you familiar with Brock Lesnar's son, who's currently tearing up the CCSHL?
I know he has a large child, but I don't know anything beyond that.
The Notre Dame Greyhounds.
Wow.
We'll have to get somebody out there to watch him.
Google this.
I sent it in the group chat this morning.
Bam.
I had no idea that was Brock Lesnar's kid.
He was. I mean, Ryan's the Elite Prospects guy here, so we're gonna have to lean on that a little bit. But I mean, I was impressed. I would say. I don't know if the rest of the crew at EP is gonna like that, but anyways, just an interesting video. We're gonna tie the two together somehow.
I can't find it.
I wish I had seen this video. I'm always looking for large sons doing crazy shit. You know what I mean?
I love it. All right, Thomas.
Okay. HOSERS is brought to you by. Okay, yeah, we got to do the ad. I'm sorry.
Bet Online.
HOSERS is brought to you by Bet Online, is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, Bet Online is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA and college basketball, the NHL, and UFC. Bet Online continues to be your number one sports betting source. from every 3-pointer to hat trick, Bet Online has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. Bet Online, the game starts here.
Not Bet99, not Bet99,
not Bet99, not Bet Rivers, not any other pod or betting service. Yeah. So, do you just want to get straight to the deadline, or do you want to like talk Jurassic Park or like make fun of me more and just like?
Well,
this is your show, man. You set the schedule, not me, or the
Thomas,
outline, whatever.
No one actually knew that bit. That wasn't recorded yet.
What bit?
You just outed yourself, buddy. This was gonna be a safe space where you've seen every
it's
movie.
Fine. It's fine. No, it's fine. I admit that I'm lacking severely on my movie knowledge, especially like anything older. Like,
well, we also had this thing. Remember, like in the early days of the podcast, we would ask you to watch a movie like over the course of the week, and then like come back and like give us like kind of a book report style thesis statement on the movie, and like that lasted for like 2 weeks.
Yeah. What did you think of the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Thomas?
It was beautiful. I don't remember watching that.
I
know that's like an old movie. One. Yeah, that's an old one, black and white.
Yeah. Right.
No, but like I talk about hockey a lot, and I write about hockey, and I've never seen the Mighty Ducks. Like,
I like here. Okay, so my origin story on the Mighty Ducks is I didn't see 1 until after I saw 2, so I had no context for like who any of these kids were.
You're like, why is this goalie doing a knuckle puck?
Oh, that's explained so clearly in the text of 2 that but like I didn't know who like I was supposed to be like, oh, Charlie Conway, that's the heart and soul of the team. I'm like, they should let the kid from Texas do it. That kid seems like he's got his shit together.
That's fair.
Dwayne, I think his name was.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you're just like, how did he get the lasso onto the ice? But I guess here we are.
Yeah. 2 minutes for roping? That would have been a game misconduct. That's 100%. They would have thrown that kid's ass out of there.
Do you think that the Mighty Ducks is more significant to American kids than it is for Canadian kids because of like the nationalism in there?
Well, I mean that's all in 2, right? Because then they just go to like a Shattuck St. Marie's stand-in for 3. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like it just felt like hockey didn't have a ton of cultural purchase. I was like 8 years old. What the fuck do I know? But like the Bruins were not as big locally as like the Celtics were in the 80s for me. So like I played basketball growing up. I didn't play hockey,
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think that's a pretty like how did you get into hockey if basketball was kind of like your kind of inroads into sports?
So I grew up in Lowell, Massachusetts, and there is a college there that has a Division I hockey team, UMass Lowell, where I eventually went to college. And they got really good around like 93, 94. Dwayne Rollison was on that team, for example. And my dad one day comes home from work and he's like, hey, we're going to this hockey game. And I was like, I don't want, like, Urkel's on, Dad. What the fuck are you talking about? I'm not going to this. And he dragged me there. And like, I don't really remember this, but the story was that my dad was like, within one period, you were like, when's the next game? So like, I couldn't really tell you much of the details about it, like what actually happened, but I just, apparently just like vibed with it immediately. And, I guess the Bruins were probably pretty good, but I don't feel like I went to a ton of Bruins games growing up.
Yeah, no, fair enough. That makes sense. I feel like that's a pretty good in. And I mean, obviously your love for college hockey is not to be understated. So I'm sure that kind of grew with things as time went on. How did you get into like writing and talking about hockey?
I was in a class and I was talking to a friend of mine in college about the hockey team, and the kid behind me says, hey, I write for the school newspaper and it sounds like you know a lot about the hockey team and we need someone to write about it. Would you want to do that? And I was like, yeah, okay. That's it.
Awesome.
There you go.
That's literally it.
You're in. Did you have to kind of relearn parts of things a little bit, like from a like a passion perspective? Because I feel like a lot of people jump in because they've got this like unwavering like passion for it, and I'm sure that came along after some time. But did you have to like readjust a little bit once you got going?
No, I mean, I always liked it, right? Like even, all through like junior high, high school, all that stuff. So like just I guess the thing I would say is like there was definitely a certain point probably when around the time I was in college where I was just like who cares who wins or loses a game, like that's I just like hockey at this point. And that goes for most sports. Like, I guess if you said like, what's your favorite, like you have to have a favorite sports team, I guess I would say the Boston Celtics. I think I've watched like 3 Celtics games this year and I don't care if they fucking win or lose ever. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so like like I said, I didn't watch the Bruins really growing up. So like I never, no affinity for like Cam Neely or Ray Bourque or any of those guys. Like I knew who they were certainly, but the idea of like caring about whether the Bruins were good, it just was like a foreign concept to me, kind of.
Fair enough. Last one before I throw it to Thomas here. I was just curious because of your way into things was like really kind of grassroots. Like you were already going to the school, easy to kind of transition and start writing. Do you think it's a different kind of barrier to entry for a lot of hockey writers now? Because a lot of them are actually reading some of their contemporaries or even people before them because it's so much easier to get on websites like Elite Prospects or some of the different blogs that have come up, Broad Street Hockey, those types of things. Do you feel that it's like almost like a bit of a different rite of passage for writers now than actually like getting after it at the level that you did to start things off?
Yeah, so like I worked at a newspaper, and then like when Puck Daddy started, I'd say within like the first year of Puck Daddy, I started writing there.
Okay.
And so that's like 09 maybe, like around the I want to say around the time the 09 playoffs started is when I started at Puck Daddy. So like that was early hockey blog stuff. I have no idea how people do it now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I feel like I just happened to be the right age to like get in on the ground floor of that stuff and be like, oh, I have a take on the Florida Panthers or whatever the fuck. So like that's literally I didn't Greg was just like emailed me like kind of cold and was like, hey, would you want to write for Puck Daddy? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like that's I think it was like $25 an article when I started. So like not a lot of money, but like it was just like, oh wow, someone's paying me to write about the NHL. Cool.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I have no idea how people do it now though. No idea.
Yeah, now I feel like it's just like tweeting and then like hopefully someone thinks your thoughts are good.
Yep.
And then now it's like and then try to get some form. Like there's a bunch of writers that obviously like I feel like because I did probably the most like priceless thing I did was do like a year of like a super quick sports journalism like post-grad thing I did at a college in Toronto. And then that got my foot in the door at Yahoo. But then other than that, it actually like it got me away from just like blogging my thoughts down on a page and just like actually some structure and like because I didn't write any for any newspaper or any like actual formal journalism or anything like that. It was just blogging. And then so that like helped harness that in. And then I think that is like so key now that might like not a lot of people know how to write a quick like inverted pyramid bullshit or something like that, like all that nonsense. But yeah, like it's tricky, but yeah, and so that's how I got my started with Yahoo, and then kind of went from there, and then COVID hit. But regardless, whatever.
Yep.
Fucking whatever.
Way she goes, you know.
Yeah. Anyways, now I'm like, I'm here at BSH, whatever. And talk about BSH. Obviously, we cover the trade deadline exclusively. If anyone's watching this or watching this on the YouTube or listening to it on the podcast, we did a lot of stuff on the YouTube. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. We're marching towards 1,000 subscribers after just starting it a few months ago. So kind of got the train rolling out there. Anyways, that's enough for the plugs on my own podcast.
Tell us more about your history, Thomas.
No. Do you want me to go into my music degree? I'll get at my bass and just like talk about that. And yeah.
We would love that, actually.
Stop making
Please,
fun of
please
me.
do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love you, buddy.
Did you go to that Missing Link show? Anyways, so the trade deadline happened, and then
That's right.
obviously that happened last week. That's right. RL, what do you think? Like, I just want to get your take on kind of we'll go big picture first, and then kind of get into the nitty gritty. But I really want to get your opinion on who came away from it like improving the most. Do you think, like, what team actually made the most action, and compared to the team that went into the deadline, like even the deadline week, what team came out of it like probably most advantageous?
I think I'm a little torn between Florida and Colorado, so I guess I'll cheat and say both of them. But gun to my head, I would say Colorado probably did. They went out, they got Ryan Lindgren, they got Charlie Coyle, they got Brock Nelson. Like, they really shored up their center depth in a way that I wouldn't say it was necessarily a problem for them, but it was maybe their weakest point. And then, Ryan Lindgren is a nice addition for them insofar as he's not going to do what he did in New York and play on the top pair, and getting him away from those like hardest minutes possible, basically. Like, they were like, hey, you need to keep up with Adam Fox. And he was like, I can try, but I'm not going to do that very well. But him on a second pair, like, I really like that. Maybe he's a little expensive at that point, but other than that, I really like that. And then, I think the timeline on Florida is a little weird because, like, who knows when Ekblad tested positive, and like who knew what and when did they know it and all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know the answer to all that. So I will say that, having Seth Jones on your second or third pair instead of the first pair in Chicago, once again, like, he's too expensive at that position, but he'll be a good player for them. They added Brad Marchand, obviously, which is really funny and cool. I'm trying to think. I think they added one more guy that I'm kind of blanking on right now. But
oh shit, I know Jesse Puljujarvi, the signed there, and then they added.
But
fuck,
yeah, I'm blanking on it. But yeah, there's one
Sturm?
more guy. Like, what's that?
Nico Sturm.
Nico Sturm, that's who. Just like a good, solid, like, bottom of the lineup guy who, again, they're just one of those teams where it's like, oh, they traded for a guy who I think is like pretty good in a certain role. They're going to get an extra 20% out of that guy because the team's that good. So I think those are the two, but I think that goes without mentioning. Dallas and Toronto certainly improved and all that. So,
here's hoping.
Yeah.
I feel like Colorado is able to address like some of the depth issues that you were talking about. Like, I feel like for the last little while, Colorado has been kind of criticized for not being able to do much down the middle after Kadri left and went to Calgary in free agency. And so I'm just looking at the lineups here, and I kind of forgot that Brock Nelson ended up there as well.
Yeah.
So you've got Brock Nelson, Charlie Coyle. You've got some of the depth adds that they had on defense. They certainly look like a much more complete team today than they did a little while ago.
Totally. And they need it because obviously Dallas is a really good team, and they added Mikko Rantanen, who, really, like, that was kind of a hole in their lineup too, is like a top end right wing that they needed, and they went out and got it. So that first round in the Central Division, no matter who is in the 2-3 there, is going to be a war. So
yeah, no doubt. I think Colorado had to address so many things heading into the playoffs, especially of just like the Central is brutal. Even the Pacific, like, you don't want to be facing the Oilers or Vegas and and unprepared in the second round or anything like that, or I guess third round or anything like that. But yeah, I think Colorado was my most improved. But it was an interesting way. I guess we'll just like go to Toronto because we're kind of Southern Ontario based. But the way that Toronto addressed their needs was, I guess, interesting to me because it's always scoring depth that have cause them so much misery, and then they get Scott Lawton, who has a career high of 15, 16. He's never scored 20.
I was going to
like
say, what's he
11
have right
goals
now?
maybe?
8, 9? Like, he can't have
8?
that
Yeah,
many.
I know. I think he might be at 11, and his career high is like 14 or something like that.
Big
And then
salute, my man.
because I know he was having
You're doing it
career
out
year
there.
because Torch was like putting him on the like in the bumper position on the power play for like
Why
2
not?
months.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, like get him the goal.
Oh,
like
boy.
I think Risto and Lawton were both on the power plays. We're like, this is the most obvious way to just like pump up their value. It's like,
And they didn't even trade
straightforward
Ristolainen
about
at the
it.
end of the day, you know?
No,
They kept
he's
him.
still on their power play tonight.
Why not, right? If it's working. Oh, it's not working? Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the worst power play in the league for 3 years straight. That's crazy. Anyways, Toronto. Yeah. So adding Scott Lawton, your local guy, Brandon Carlo, at the deadline, and they made a bunch of moves. And I honestly like I first thought like it made sense to get those guys just for like veteran presence and like they're better than their options. But then it kind of made me second guess of like what they gave up was like probably more pricey relative to what they got back more than anyone. Like Avalanche, you could argue that Callum Ritchie in a first round pick is massive. Like Ritchie's a guaranteed middle six center for a while, and then you get your and then you're like even the Linger trade for a second. You get Charlie Coyle. You gave up Casey Middlestat. You kind of
the guy they didn't want
in a second round pick for that. Yeah,
right. Like that's the thing with Middlestat. Okay, fucking see you later.
Yeah. No, exactly. And like, but I think with Toronto, it was an interesting way, like to give up that much for Lawton, the first and the Gurbenkin, and then the first and Minton, basically like emptying a good portion of their prospect pool to cash in on this year. I think it might have been a mistake, but what was your kind of opinion when you kind of saw those full deals come through?
Well, if you look to your point about like collectively what Colorado gave up over the last, however, you know, going back to the Rantanen trade to get Natchez and Drury in there too. If you look at what they gave up, obviously Rantanen's a huge thing, and like yeah, they gave up a first round pick and Callum Ritchie, but like, what does Colorado want those guys? But like, what is Colorado doing with the first round pick at the end of the day, right? Like, who gives a shit? Oh, we don't get to pick 29th next year. Oh, that sucks. You know, price like the price they paid for all the stuff we just mentioned, like 4 middle of the roster NHL guys, basically, versus what Toronto gave up for 1 middle of the roster NHL guy, and like maybe a guy that if he's in the upper middle, you're not maybe so happy about it in Lawton, right? And like Colorado was already one of the 2 or 3, depending on how you feel about Dallas and Winnipeg, best teams in their division. And Toronto, clear number 3, I think you would say, behind Tampa and Florida, right? Like, I know where they were in the standings is one thing, but like on paper, who would you rather have? Like, you know, you can pick either the Raptors, the Maple Leafs, or the Lightning, or the Panthers. The Maple Leafs are your 3rd pick every time, right? So, to like you said, they kind of have to go for it this year just because of the age of all their players, and Tavares is probably leaving in the summer, and maybe Marner's leaving in the summer too. That's not even getting into the Rantanen thing.
We'll get that.
I assumed. Like
okay.
they had to give up a lot to improve, not very much, and certainly not to the point where you're like, oh, they're even like they have parity with Tampa and Florida. Like that's a clear 1 and 2, whichever order you want to put them in. I'd probably say Florida 1, but the way Tampa's going lately, how could you argue against it? Anyway, I just think Toronto improved so marginally relative to like what Colorado or Florida or Tampa did. Like, why bother?
For the Maple Leafs fans that are listening, and there are probably a few, 1 or 2 at least, the best case scenario with Brandon Carlo versus what has been, I think a lot of people would suggest, a pretty lackluster season in Boston. Like, what's the best possible version of Brandon Carlo that we get in your opinion there, Ryan?
Middle pair penalty. He's a really good penalty killer, you know? And so now the Leafs have 2 guys who, you know, him and Tanev are 2 really good penalty killers. You can basically have high level penalty killing, no matter, either first or second unit. So I think that's the, what do you want to say? Like, that's the advantage of getting a Carlo, a guy I think is quite good when he's healthy, for what the role is, and they won't use him. I hope for their sake they don't use him too high in the lineup. But if you can deploy him a little selectively, I think he's a really good ad. He's just not like Ryan Lambert or Seth Jones level quality, but you get what you pay for, money wise,
Definitely.
Yeah. It just felt like the Leafs were just like trying to float around. It's tough writing about the Flyers and having an opinion about Lawton of how like nice he is to have on your team, just be around, and then look at him on the ice and it's like it's fine. Like he's
not terrible or anything. It's just you had to give up a first and a prospect for him, and it's like, oh, really? For Scott Lawton? This is okay. Well, all right, the guy from the Flyers.
And I feel. Sorry, go ahead, Thomas.
Well, I was going to even say like to make the Carlo deal work. Also, they gave away Connor Dewar, and like obviously,
right.
I watched a good portion of Minnesota when he was coming up, and I really liked him. He was super speedy. Like I think he brings maybe overall similar impact to Lawton. Obviously, maybe not the physicality part, but he could like crash and bang as much as he can for a guy that's on the shoulder end. But yeah, like I think to make that work, and then you give up Connor Timmins, which obviously like no one's a really big Connor Timmins fan. I doubt anyone is crazy enough to have a super
Kyle
high
Dubas,
opinion or like an opinion at all.
The one,
well,
there it is.
Okay.
Gotta be Kyle Dubas.
Let me just look up where he played junior. Oh shit!
Crazy coincidence. You're not gonna fucking believe it.
That's wild. Yeah, like it's the moves that they did. It feels like it's like not upgrading that much, and they paid so much for it. And I'm just repeating the same point, but it just feels like they're just kind of floating there, and it's not great to see. And then especially adding the scenario that they had with Mitch Marner. So in case anyone missed it, they were in talks with Mikko Rantanen. I don't know how. Yeah. You're just like, I'm done with the deadline. And then just like 3:00, you just turn your TV off, turn everything off. You're like, that's hockey for me.
Spinning off his chair. Yeah, I'm out of here.
Flat papers flying. Yeah, it's the so obviously the Leafs were interested in Mikko Rantanen, getting him from Carolina. Carolina reportedly asked for Mitch Marner as the return, and then the Leafs were like, sure. Went to Marner to waive his no move clause. Marner said, fuck off. And then showing that, oh, I want to stay here in Toronto and everything like that. So there's no deal done. And then now it's will he resign in Toronto? And if he doesn't, then he's going to seem like public enemy number one, bigger than Kawhi Leonard probably. Of
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. They're of not signing in Toronto and not re-upping there. And yeah, so it's going to be a great time. But like, would you have kind of taken the two players in a vacuum? Of course, we don't know the whole deal. If picks or prospects would have been on either side or more roster players, I don't know if it would have just been a 1-for-1 UFA for UFA swap. But the Leafs were on Rantanen's list for that. He was going to re-sign in Toronto anyways. Mm-hmm. What's your whole I guess opinion of the whole situation? Like, would that have been a smart move for Carolina? Would that a smart move for Toronto, especially with the extension and not knowing Marner's whole deal, what's in the future? But what was kind of your impression of it?
If it's a 1-for-1, I would, and totally in a vacuum, I'd rather have Marner than Rantanen. I think he's just a better player, a player with a stronger track record of being able to make things happen, independent of a really good center. We don't have a lot of data on Rantanen away from McKinnon, but the data we do have is, maybe you don't want to pay that guy $12 million. And so the whole Carolina thing of we didn't find out till he got here that he would only sign with 4 teams in the entire NHL, and we weren't one of them. That's something they should have found out, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, probably.
They should have cracked that one before they traded for it. But with that in mind, and knowing that he would sign in Toronto, I think from the Leafs point of view, it makes sense to at least kick the tires on that because you don't know about Marner re-signing. And so you'd rather have Rantanen for sure locked in at whatever $13 million, let's say, to cover whatever the taxes difference would be between Ontario and Texas. You'd rather slightly downgrade at that position just for the certainty that we have this guy for the next 8 1/3 seasons, you know. But because Marner, you know, this is a decision they should have made like 2 years ago with Marner. Like, are we keeping him or are we not? And they just didn't do it. They kicked the can down the road, which I get why, but now it looks like it might really fuck him over if he goes to like Chicago or whatever this summer. But I like the idea of the trade. I want more crazy one for like if they had come on and they said, I got a text here from a source. Mikko Rantanen for Mitch Marner 1-for-1. The whole place would have gone fucking ape shit, right? Because not only that, but like that, the complicatedness of the deal for Carolina and Dallas held up so many other trades. Like Brock Besser didn't get traded probably because of that, and like all these other things just didn't happen or didn't come out till later because there was just so many moving parts with like Stankoven and parts for Rantanen. So yeah, I respect it for both teams. I would rather have Marner, even signed for a slightly more money longer term.
Yeah, he had a really good fuck you game against Pittsburgh right after all of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
it's
go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, already Stankoven seems like he can fucking play, and Taylor Hall's playing really well in Carolina. Like, it's the vibes are bad in Carolina just because it's like no one wants to play here or whatever all of a sudden. But like they seem to have come out of the deadline better too, after losing Rantanen, you know.
It's weird because I feel like people, I think specifically internet hockey people, for the lack of a better way of saying it, they almost like Carolina has won so many times, on draft day, they're picking everybody's list, they're getting all these like small skilled niche players. They have, I would say, a lot more wins than they have losses. So it felt like people were almost like they were almost like kind of dunking on Carolina a little bit and have kind of continued to do that over the last couple of days. But I feel that, and I mean, I'm not the first person to say this by any means, but I almost feel like Stankoven is better suited for Carolina's game and the game that Rob Brind'Amour wants the team to play than Rantanen is, right? Like Rantanen's game, he needs to have the puck to put the puck in the net. Brind'Amour's game is very much like crash and bang. Let's, get the puck in deep and then retrieve the puck and then, put the puck in the net. It just seems to be a bit more conducive to Stankoven's game. So I agree with you. I feel like a lot of the dunking on, the Carolina Hurricanes is almost unwarranted. And I feel like they're going to make out just fine.
I think they'll be fine. The thing I always say is like the thing I root for, like people say, oh, well, you got to root for something. The thing I root for is the funniest possible thing to happen in any given situation or like any game, And so like objectively, this is extremely funny that they traded for a guy and immediately were like, oh, you don't want to play here. Oh, well, I guess we'll do something else. But I think, like, I made this point on my podcast today, but like, if you had said a month ago when they first made this, or whatever, a month and a half, whenever they made the trade with Dallas or with Colorado, if you had said, okay, it's Marty Necas, a guy they didn't really have long-term plans for, Jack Drury, a guy nobody really cares about, like a couple of second-round picks, for Stankoven and 2 firsts, you're like, oh, that's a fucking awesome trade. They killed it, And so, like, the only problem is that they got a guy who was like, fuck off. You know what I mean? Like, that's the only the only issue. Like they made absolutely the best out of that situation they could have. And to your point, I'd rather have Stankoven for the next 8 years than 29-year-old Mikko Rantanen or however old he is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah, it's just so funny that like comparing that overall swap, like kind of the mental gymnastics everyone kind of took when as soon as that Rantanen to Dallas deal kind of got finalized, we're like, oh well, it was really just this. It is funny that in the middle of it, like the part that you take out is probably like a top 5 winger on the planet. Just
Right.
like, oh yeah, there's that guy that like dominated so much and won the cup and everything. Oh yeah, it's like beyond this biggest trade of like for a while that everyone's talking about. It's just like, oh yeah, he's included, but you kind of have to take him out and do all these things. But yeah.
Well, it's fun. Like, let's put it this way: when you play for a team for like 6 weeks or whatever, and then when they trade you, the governor of your state is like, "Ah, you kind of sucked anyway." I don't know if you saw that tweet. The governor of North Carolina, who's the governor of North Carolina, who's a big Caniac, like tweeted like, "Hey, Mikko, sorry to hear you didn't want to live here. It's actually a pretty sick state if you think about it." Anyway, I guess my take is if we were going to pay for 8 years of what you just gave us for the last 6 weeks, see you later, was basically what he said. Like he was just like, okay, you kind of sucked here, man. I don't know what to tell you. Don't let the door hit you.
But it's what you said about McKinnon is so true. Like we have obviously a much larger sample with him as McKinnon as a center, but I don't know. Like in Carolina, it looked like he never quite got it going, right? Like obviously you have Four Nations kind of thrown in there.
Yeah.
You've got all of the like hubbub about the trade and like feeling blindsided and like kind of in his feelings about everything. Who's he been playing with so far in Dallas? I should probably know that. I do not know that.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're all doing the same face.
I was just gonna guess. I was literally just gonna guess. Robertson and Hintz, wasn't it? But Hintz is injured.
Well, Hintz is hurt, so it's Johnston. Yeah. It would be Wyatt Johnston. But when games happen on the weekends, I don't usually see them until like the condensed games you can get on NHL.com or whatever. I watch a lot of those back because I'm at college hockey games on the weekend, so I'm usually not seeing many weekend games. So Dallas is playing tonight, right? No, okay. Maybe did I miss a game yesterday? No, okay. I don't know when their next game is. I guess
they're around,
but I'm sure they'll have one or two eventually. But yeah, I mean, like I think that he worked, like you said, Chris. Like he just works better in Dallas's system than Carolina's anyway.
Mm-hmm. Was there a move from deadline day that you felt was like maybe a bit understated, or like maybe an underrated move by the GM that made the trade?
Yeah, I mean, this is the example I've been giving anytime anybody's asked me that for the last like 4 or 5 days or whatever. So like I'm just repeating myself. I apologize. But like Jake Wallman to Edmonton, I think Jake Wallman's so sick, and like he showed in San Jose that like he isn't going to embarrass himself even on a horrible team getting like monster minutes, and he's not going to get monster minutes in Edmonton, right? So the idea that he's going to be on the second power play unit, like he's not going to get the points necessarily because he's not going to play with McDavid and Draisaitl, but like he can be an extremely effective puck moving defenseman when Evan Bouchard's off the ice, which they kind of don't have right now. Like Darnell Nurse does that a little bit, but like he fucks up maybe more often than you'd like. And Wallman, he just makes a really good first pass a lot of the time. So I really like that addition for them, even though like everyone was mad they didn't get a winger and they didn't get a goalie,
The on the topic of goalies, I know we kind of already talked about Colorado, but which goaltending tandem do you feel most comfortable with going into the playoffs? And I ask because I think a few months ago, a lot of us would have had little to no faith in what Colorado's goaltending situation looked like. And in a few months, they've obviously added Scott Wedgwood and Mackenzie Blackwood. So is there a goaltending tandem that you feel particularly confident about going into the next part of the season?
Yeah, those guys.
Those are the guys. Love it. Perfect.
Like
That's easy.
It really like there's a lot of teams with like a really solid number one and like a backup where it's like, yeah, I mean they're never going to use him. You know what I mean? Like once it's playoff time, Florida just did a ton of musical chairs. I don't even know who their backup technically is at this point because they traded Spencer Knight. They traded Chris Drieger. So like I'm not really sure off the top of my head who their backup is these days.
Isn't it Vanacek? Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's Vanacek's the guy they got. Yeah. So but like okay, yeah, I guess if he gets hurt, like if Bobrovsky gets hurt, like Vanacek's fine. But also like if he gets hurt, they have bigger problems than whether Vitek Vanacek's fine, especially again in that division, like that's tough. But yeah, and I mean like Washington's another one. Like they didn't really do anything at the deadline, but like you can't say those guys haven't played great all season,
Yeah, for sure.
So.
Yep, like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's man. What would you say, kind of moving on and doing the typical blogger content way of phrasing this, but what would you say is the winners of the deadline? So overall, like rather than like coming out of the deadline most impactful, like what do you think of the moves? So like including sellers, of course, like who do you think got the most bang for their buck, were the most active? Like who do you think kind of just walked away with taking advantage of the situation the most?
Yeah, I hate to just keep saying Colorado to answer every question, but like I said, like they added a middle of the lineup defenseman. They added 2 centers that are going to play in their middle 6. If you want to include the goaltending that they turned over earlier this year, the goaltending, like they've done a ton of work on that roster completely on the fly. And for me, I think it all worked out great for them. So like I'll say them. I really like Tampa adding Gord and Bjorkstrand. Bjorkstrand just scans as one of those guys like, oh, he's going to have 28 goals next season, And Gord is obviously a guy they have a ton of familiarity with, and they'll use him really effectively deeper down the lineup. And the way they're playing lately, like adding those 2 guys to the mix, like how can you not be like super confident for them? I like that Boston sold for once. Like they actually committed to selling. They should have done it, over the summer, I guess. But I get why they didn't, just because I coming into the year you would have said, oh, as long as Swayman plays well, and he's been kind of bad for most of the year. But yeah, I like that Boston sold. I liked a couple teams just kind of like Montreal. Let the chips fall where they may, fuck it. Like we're kind of playing with house money. We didn't expect to be particularly competitive, and now we are. So we're not going to add, but we're also not going to sell. I like that Columbus kind of did the same thing. So I like a few teams doing that as well, just to kind of stay in the mix. But I guess I'll also shout out Ottawa for getting Dylan Cousins.
Cousins has been killed. I think he literally just scored like a minute
really?
ago, because I think the Flyers games
Flyers,
still going on. Yeah,
it is
I
indeed.
Know. Trust
late
me,
third.
I know. Yeah. Cousins has probably been the most impactful. Like the Sens have played a lot. I think it's his 3rd game now. I think he has a point in every one so far. His first game, he had an assist and 9 hits. Just open up, kind of make an impression. I think I wasn't a big fan of Cousins. Like there was a whole conversation about whether the Flyers checked in on him apparently, and I don't know what it would cost, but I wasn't a massive fan. I thought maybe his like super crazy good season was a blip. But yeah, apparently he's sick. So just needs to be surrounded by talent. What did you think of the swap, like of the whole Norris thing? But
yeah, so like I think ideally what like Norris is as kind of a baseline level player is what you want Cousins to become, like a 25 to 30 goal guy who can do. They're obviously, I'm just talking about like production wise, they're obviously very different in their styles, but like that's kind of the ceiling of what you expect Cousins to be. But Cousins in theory is going to be healthy, and Josh Norris never is, so I think that if you're making that kind of swap, you're also, if you're Ottawa, doing the thing again. This is like a thing I've been saying basically for like 3 years now. But if you can get a young-ish player out of Buffalo, he is going to be way better for you than he was for them. Like, go down the list. Ryan O'Reilly immediately wins the Conn Smythe when he gets out of Buffalo, right? Jack Eichel wins the Cup within like a year and a half. Robin Lehner goes from like, yeah, he's okay to like he's a Vezina quality goaltender. The list goes on. And so like if you can get somebody to go out of Buffalo to leave Buffalo, you can count on them being like 25% better than they were. And like, so now I'm thinking like Josh Norris is going to turn into kind of what Dylan Cousins has been, right? Like he's going to be like, yeah, I'm just not as good as I used to be. It's crazy. I don't know what's going on. They're one of the like all-time Buffalo like loser franchises to me. Like they just, I don't know how they're ever going to fix the problem. And
like you need a new owner probably, but
well, yeah, okay, so sure they get the billionaire to sell the team.
That's the big picture thing. That's the big picture. But
I mean, look, there's a lot of teams. You want to fix the Canucks? I have a great solution. Get Aquilini to sell the team, right? Like, there's no escaping that part. But like, even Kevin Adams the other day was like, "Look, have I done a good job? No, I haven't. Obviously, look at the fucking team. You know, like." And you can't argue with him. It's like, no, Kevin, please, Kevin, don't be so hard on you. Yeah, of course, be hard on yourself, man. You're the GM of the Buffalo Sabres, you know? So yeah, like I like that for Ottawa just because they correctly identified that they can maybe get more out of a player than the Sabres have, because every other team that's traded for a notable Sabre in the last like 6 years has gotten more out of them than that. So
yeah,
I agree. I Buffalo is just so fucking annoying.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, my wife just walked down here, and I think she knew that I was about to start shit talking Buffalo. But what I would say is that they just consistently make mistakes with their development, with their players, their personnel, so on and so forth. And then we run into situations where they're kind of building out prospects to thrive on another team. And we talked about it last week, but they have so many prospects that you like should be kind of fighting for an NHL spot, but there's so many of them that they've got, you know, what were touted as like first and second round picks playing in Rochester in a bottom six role because there's just simply no room for them to kind of move up and develop the way that they're supposed to be. So this Dahlin discourse that's come up in the last 24 hours has been pretty hilarious.
Oh wait, last 24 hours. I guess I haven't seen this. What happened? What happened with old Rasmus?
It came out that on Spit and Chicklets that Biz basically said like, hey, I heard from a reputable source that Dahlin went and talked to Kevin Adams and said like, if you don't get things figured out, I'm going to ask for a trade and I'm going to be out of here. And then obviously he was asked about it after the morning skate in a presser this morning. And then they basically did their like cringy social media shit where they're like, straight from the captain's mouth, he's not going anywhere. Like, it's so dumb. And like, I don't know. I have no time for that shit because, and I get it. The social media people are just doing their job. And I can only imagine how hard that job can be, you know, especially if you're a Boston Bruins social media intern this week. I totally get it. Nightmare. But at the same time, this like, we're going to like take control of the narrative. We're going to take our power back. And like, all this stuff is crazy because if I were Dahlin, I'd be saying the same shit. I mean, I have no doubt that there's probably, you know, some discourse there. Like, we've seen Rasmus Dahlin play. Like, we know he can be a little bit fiery. We know he's got a little bit of an edge to him, right? So it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of those players were like, I'm seeing my friend left and right, like thriving in new environments. Like, at what point are you going to actually build around me? And, you know, I think of like Owen Powers and like, you know, other guys that have been kind of added throughout these last couple of years, and none of them seem to really be getting any better. Maybe that's too like defeatist, but that's kind of my thought.
No, I think that's a correct assessment of like, they're developing, but not at the rate you would like. And, you know, some of that's just like some years, the guy who's the number one pick is the number one pick. And he's just like, not particularly great. You know, like some years it's a Niall Yakupov is the number one pick. And And it's like, oh, well, they shouldn't have taken him. And it's like, okay, the guy who went number 2 was Ryan Murray. So, like, what did you want them to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
that's true. Yeah. I agree.
But with that having been said, like to your point, like if I'm Rasmus Dahlin or Owen Power or JJ Peterka, and it's like, man, this is year fucking 5 of this for me, year 7, you know, like how do you not get frustrated, especially because they keep doing the thing that drives me fucking crazy when any team does it. It's not the Sabres only. Like I've said this about the Red Wings the last few years of like, oh, you have really good, cool prospects you're excited about. Awesome. So why did you like sign Andrew Kopp and like, you know, like a middle 6 defenseman that you're going to put in a first pair role, like to block those players from, like you said, getting into the opportunity. Like you shouldn't be giving first unit power play minutes to player X if you think like this kid who you hope will be one of the like future pillars of your franchise or whatever you want to say. Like let that guy get the 50 points, not this fucking like 28-year-old who's not going to be here in 4 years.
Yeah. And I get they've had injuries and stuff too. Like I love Jack.
Everybody
Quinn.
has
like,
injuries, man. Like
he's,
you know.
No, I agree. I think that at some point though, like, yeah, you need to like actually see that things are kind of moving in the right direction.
Yep.
And they just continue to be, you know, a team that's like, with the exception of the Owen Power year, like never bad enough that it's a top 3 pick. It's always like in the, you know, kind of 5 to 12 or 13 range. And at that point, you know, you're not always getting the difference maker that you expect to be getting,
Totally.
you know, in the draft, right?
Yep. No, that's exactly right. And like the lottery balls are always a problem. Like, you know, they're one lottery ball away from they have Connor McDavid instead of Jack Eichel, and maybe everything's different, you know?
Yeah.
But you can't, you again, this is the Detroit thing. We never win the draft lottery. It's like, well, you know, 31 teams a year don't win the draft lottery. A lot of them seem to be getting better at a different rate than you. So like, what is ultimately the problem here? You know, like if you're consistently picking in the top 8, like you should be better than the Buffalo Sabres are. I don't know how else to put it to you. This is year 14 of no playoffs, right? So yeah, like they're not, I mean, they did get 2 number 1 picks. So there's that. But I think they're just unlucky in that one of the years they got the number 1 pick, it was another defenseman who also isn't like maybe the huge difference maker you would usually want a number 1 pick to be. You know what I mean? So it's just bad luck. It was the Oilers' problem for years.
I've got a question for you as we kind of pivot a little bit to what's going on in Massachusetts right now. What's the temperature right now for the Bruins? Like Buffalo's in this place. Boston is, you know, they always find a way to make it work in the past. So I obviously can't put them in the same category as Buffalo, but you know, the draft picks that they got are probably not going to materialize into anything for, you know, 6 to 8 years. How are people feeling after this Marchand trade in your estimation?
Well, it's tough. Like I saw someone posting the other day about like Bill Simmons, the way he talks about the Patriots rebuild is like he just like can't kind of wrap his head around like, wait, guy, like you have all this cap space, but guys don't want to sign with you because they know you're gonna suck. That's weird. And everybody who is a fan of a team that's not the Patriots, the most successful North American sports franchise of the 21st century, like everyone's like, yeah, that's how it fucking works, man. And it's kind of the like a great example on Instagram. A friend of mine who's a big Bruins fan, like shared on his stories, like, that's it with the Marchand trade. There's officially nobody from the 2011 Bruins left on the Bruins. And it's like, yeah, man, that was 14 fucking years ago. Of course there's nobody left on that team. What are you talking about? You know, like people just kind of can't wrap their head around, you know, 2 years ago or whatever it was, 3 years ago, maybe they set the record for the most points in a regular season. Right. And what did they have then? They still had Bergeron. They still had Krejci, right? Like they had all these guys who were like huge difference makers, and those guys just got old, you know? And like Pasternak, he's only one guy at the end of the day. And McAvoy, there's another guy that if you want to say he didn't turn into what everybody kind of thought he would be, I'm not going to disagree with you. And they tried to keep it going for a long time, and they kept kind of, even when they missed, it didn't really matter. Like they would give a guy like $5 million, and you go, why the fuck would they do that? And then it didn't matter. They'd still get to like 108 points or whatever, you know, because they had Bergeron and Chara and Krejci and Marchand and Pasternak and Tuukka Rask. Like you could go down the list. They just had a bunch of all-stars for a lot of years in a row. And because they haven't drafted well and they've traded all those picks for years, they never replaced those guys. They just never even attempted to. They got, what was Pasternak, like the 21st overall pick or something like that? Like he was a late pick that they just kind of backed into.
Right. Yeah.
McAvoy, they got like 7th or something like that. I want to say like the one year they were kind of like accidentally bad when they still had Chara and Bergeron. Maybe 1 or 2 years in a row. And like, so they got guys that could play, and like Carlo's another, I think he was a 2nd round pick. They hit on it, you know, but they just didn't hit consistently enough. And I think that a lot of Bruins fans are like, I don't want to say betrayed. Like they're just kind of like, whoa, this can happen to us. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I don't know, like I'm very curious to see what they do with the picks they got this summer. Cause like, there's not a rule that says they can't just fucking trade those, you know? Like I think Fraser Minton's going to be in their lineup next year, for example. But like, I think, you know, what do they care about like Toronto's 2028 pick? They'll just fucking trade it for Brock Besser or somebody like that. Maybe they should not be in the business of acquiring more Canucks. The last 2 they got didn't work out so well. But like, I think that it's really interesting to see if they're kind of taking this as like a 1 year, ooh, we fucked up, let's kind of rebuild on the fly, like before, you know, Pasternak is 30 or whatever. Or if they're kind of like, maybe we just build through the draft for a couple of years and hopefully, you know, like they're not horrible this year. You know what I mean? Like if Swayman is a 9-15 goalie, they're 1,000,000% in the playoffs right now. You know what I mean? They're not like a good team that everybody thinks is good, but they're in the playoffs and that's all they really care about. So I wonder what because this is a team that's just like, we don't rebuild. So I wonder what their mentality is now. And they really haven't like explicated that, I don't think, at this point.
Yep. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. For one point, I do really like Kuznetsov. I think he had something more to prove than what he was in Minnesota, and he was basically stapled on the fourth line.
Bruin style player too, right?
Oh like, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so
smaller, but like could skate so well. But yeah, 4th line in Minnesota forever. He didn't even touch the AHL yet. Like he just went straight to their NHL lineup, no development, and then just like here's fuck, I forget. Here's like Vinny Lettieri. Like Bruin right now, but he was on.
I was gonna say,
fucking, yeah. But anyways,
and I think if you're a Bruins fan, you're excited about Minton as well, definitely.
Yeah, and like he's not gonna be like a huge difference maker for them or anything, like ever. I wouldn't think, but also like I maybe not to really, you know, salt the earth for him here, but like you wouldn't have said when they drafted Patrice Bergeron he was going to be a huge difference maker for them, and you know that's a Hall of Fame player. So. Like, I'm not saying that's even like his ceiling or anything like that, but like that's a guy they'll put in the lineup, and he, you know, he's the kind of player that they'll like in Boston and that kind of thing. So yeah, like I think they added some guys that can help in the NHL at the NHL level, including Casey Middlestat. Although you want to talk about a guy who's not a Bruin style player, like holy shit. You know, but they're going to be really interesting to watch just because I don't know what the like direction is.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be really interesting if you like, not to take it too far a step back, but very quickly, like what would they have done if they nailed those 3 first-round picks in a row? Like if they got Barzal and Connor, and it would have been, not to put the nail in the coffin, but yeah, like they would have been in a completely different place and still be as competitive as they were. But yeah,
that was fucking 10 years ago. Dude. Like that draft was so long ago now. And that crazy about that's a 10-year-old joke.
That's nuts. RL, I think you're like going robot voice. I don't know if it's for Christian Carter.
Uh-oh.
If it's the same for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hearing it a little bit.
Okay.
I
don't know if like.
Is there something I can do? I don't know. Would you like me to disconnect and reconnect?
Yeah, maybe just like
Okay.
It sounds really cool.
It does sound
Cool
cool.
effects.
Sounds like you're in an industrial band.
Wow.
I fuck
Little
with it.
tremolo.
All right, let me try that again.
All right.
I might when he gets back, I might go to bed, guys.
I know, dude. I know it's so late.
This
I
has been a
feel
good
bad.
it's been a good learning session for me.
You probably said like 3 words. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Cody.
well, no one's passed the mic. No one cares who I think is a winner or loser. Everyone's like, oh, who won the trade? Never. What does Carter think about the trade deadline?
Oh, I think the real
Okay.
winner of the trade deadline is daylight savings time, bruv.
Did I fix it?
Now
Yeah.
you sound better.
Yeah,
there you go.
Now you
That's
sound
what's
better.
up. That's
Wild.
what's up.
You needed to be on the bottom left of the screen. That was the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have a
Carter, are
quick
you
question.
departing us?
Oh yeah, Carter,
Yeah, guys,
take-
I might go to bed. It's almost 2 a.m. here, so I might.
Checks out.
Yeah, we haven't.
Yeah.
I agree with Ryan. I think Colorado won.
Yep, absolutely, brother.
Yeah, I was fired up to see Coyle go there. Everyone's like, oh, whatever. But I think that was one of the biggest parts of the deadline was watching or seeing Coyle go to Colorado. Yeah, that's my take for what it's worth.
Thanks, Carter.
Appreciate that.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Love you, Cardi. Get a good
Love
night's
you
sleep, buddy.
guys.
Later, bud.
Thanks, man. Bye now.
Yeah.
See ya.
All right. God, I love him so much.
Out of here, huh? Right?
We've kept him up for so long.
Yeah, I feel really bad.
We're just like, oh yeah, like we'll just do the pod at like 9 o'clock or whatever our time, not thinking that he's got to like be at work at 8 o'clock in the morning in the UK. But I have 2 more questions for you, and then I'm good. And then I'll pass the conch over to Thomas here. Do you get that reference, Thomas? Lord of the Flies?
Yeah, this is a book. That's not even just a movie.
No, we
All
read
right.
The Outsiders.
Hell yeah, S.E. Hinton, baby. She wrote that book
We
when
love
she was
it.
like 15 years old. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, that is crazy.
You know,
She was in
my
high school.
son is named after Dallas from that book, right?
I didn't know
Thomas?
What? No.
Dallas, like my
No, no.
Dallas is named after Dallas in the book, The Outsiders. He's the guy with the
I didn't
gun.
know that. I'm
He's got the
sorry.
gun at the end. You don't get the reference, Thomas. Forget it.
I don't know. I've read it like so long.
that. Church burns down at the end.
Greatest book. Love
By the
that
way,
book.
right now the Bruins are, with a minute left, are about to beat the Florida Panthers 3-2.
So
There you
sick.
go.
That
Oh my
rocks,
God.
man.
Not
They-
even-
I
and
mean,
Marchand's not
they're
even
about to go
playing.
2-0 against Florida and Tampa to start the post Marchand era.
Hockey so
Before
stupid.
we go, I wanted to get just one last thought from you here. We all kind of listen to the same music. We're also hardcore metal guys. What have you been listening to lately that has really got you excited?
It's not really anything new. I kind of hit reset at the start of a new year where it's like I can kind of put a little bit of the stuff I got last year aside and like kind of look forward to, like, this is when I listen to old shit basically. But with that having been said, I think the album that, do you guys know Third Face?
I'm not familiar myself.
They put out an album last year. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head. I'll have to look it up. But they're really, really sick. I think you guys would both like them. Let me see what the new Third Face album is called. But they've got a couple of good ones that are worth checking out. Third Face, one word.
Well, they're from Nashville.
That sounds right.
Crazy. I don't think. Yeah, I haven't listened to a lot of Tennessee hardcore.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know. They're just on they're on Exploding in Sounds record, which is like a like more of an indie rock.
Yeah.
Am I doing robot?
I'm hearing a
voice again?
feedback. Okay, that was Chris.
Oh, okay. Oops.
Sorry, I had
Are you
to.
just joining for your phone? Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting some interference on my end, guys. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna wrap up this last little bit on my phone. My apologies.
Wow.
No sweat. It's called Ministerial Cafeteria is the new record. It says here Pitchfork gave it an 8.0, and you know they don't like the music we like over there. You know,
that's true.
So that's a really good band to me. I think the first one I got from them was what was it? Do It With a Smile came out a couple of years ago, and that was the first one I listened to, and then went back and checked it out. So, yeah, they're really sick. I think you guys would like them a lot.
Definitely check that out.
What about you guys? What recs do you have for me?
Go ahead, Thomas.
I've been listening. Fuck. Now I gotta check what I was listening to because I've been listening to again a lot of old stuff.
Yep.
Been listening to a lot of Crowbar.
Oh yeah.
Just
you got to.
Like every album is unreal. Listening to a lot of the new Mongrel EP.
Mm-hmm.
That's been good. Listening to I've actually been listening to Deicide a lot.
Okay, sure. Why not, man?
Who is this guy? He's a new man.
Can I say what this is going to be really funny to you guys, I think. You know what I like this time of year puts me in a real mood for this artist? Danzig. The first 4 Danzig albums are so sick.
The transition in spring. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like mid February, I'm just like, what am I not going to listen to How the Gods Kill right now, man? Come on, I have to.
I love it. I've been listening to that the new Ingrown LP Idaho. Like
I haven't checked that out.
Pretty much nonstop since it came out. I really enjoyed that. That's probably, I mean, that and the new Lady Gaga LP have kind of been my I'm not gonna front. It's a great album if you like pop music, but
I don't. So
well, then you might not like it, buddy. Yeah. I hate to break it to you, but yeah, the Ingrown one is cool because I don't know. I really like the kind of like the vibe that the band has in the sense that like they've totally let me work backwards with this. I think with a lot of hardcore bands, they often do a lot of like imagery that maybe doesn't represent like who they are, if that makes sense. Like for a long time, every band was like, you know, putting out this like kind of tough guy NYHC thing. And it's like, buddy, I know you're from the suburbs. Like, I know you've never done a hard thing in your life. Like, who are you trying to be, right? And Ingrown really has embraced the fact that they're like, they love shooting guns and they like to like ride dirt bikes. And like, I kind of like that they're true to themselves in that sense. And the music is just so hard. It's been a cool band to check out. Ryan, I have a quick follow-up question to that because we interview a lot of our friends who, you know, kind of come from the same background that we do. Like we all met playing hardcore bands, and then of course we all, you know, loved hockey, and we're able to kind of find a great kind of place where everything kind of coalesced together. But do you feel like there's a kind of a crossroads for people that like hockey as much as we do gravitating to hardcore music or vice versa? What do you think that's all about?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just kind of like that hockey guys are tough kind of a thing that like it's funny because I grew up like in, you know, like Bane is from around here or whatever, right? Or one of the Hatebreed is what I meant to say. Hatebreed is from around here, and it's like, yeah, I just like never vibed with that shit. Like it seemed too jockey to me, you know? Like when I was in high school, like the bands I listened to were like Disrupt and Extreme Noise Terror and Aus Rotten and those kinds of like that. more political, I guess you would say, hardcore bands. And so like, yeah, like Hatebreed and Bane and all those kind of bands, like I just never got into them. And like certainly I have seen those shows because like they would play with a band I wanted to see, and then I would be like, oh, the crowd here is a little aggro for me and my nerdy friends, you know. So like I I never played hockey, so like I just don't feel like I'm a jock in that way, you know.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
I'm more. If I can use the expression the Doughboys use, I'm a sporto, but I don't think of myself as a jock, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
I can like throw a ball in a way that like doesn't look embarrassing or whatever, but that's about the extent of it. You know, I can get a good cut at the batting cage, but yeah,
I love it.
I just think that there's like a, you know, hard nose kind of like a lot of crossover with that kind of mindset for sure.
I love it. Yeah, and I mean we've
Yeah,
been lucky that way to find people that are kind of into both. I think we've kind of found like a little bit of a niche for ourselves that way, and have been lucky trying to get more and more of our friends that are into both things, and we can kind of talk about how we all found each other that way. But our goal is to someday get Eric Goodbranson on the podcast. He is famously a hate breed fan, so if you've got any contacts for us to reach out to, please send those to Thomas.
I don't, but this is one of those things that like, especially now with the like with the way social media works, just send him a DM on Instagram and I bet he'd fucking look at it and go, "Oh, sick, hardcore. Yeah, that's cool." You know what I mean? Like I really think it could be that simple in the year of our Lord 2025.
All right. Well, listen,
No.
we're gonna give it an honest effort here, and I think we tried DMing him before, didn't we, Thomas? Or was that somebody else that was like, absolutely not?
Yeah, I tried in like probably 2021 in one of our many stints of like trying to revitalize pod and not make it serious or but yeah, anyways, I definitely have DM'd him to no avail, but
Okay.
yeah, there's a maybe from the pod account, maybe from Brushy Hockey, honestly, get the follower, the brand, the
Yeah.
business account kind of.
Yeah,
That's
if you have the
how
little,
it
if
can
you can
maybe
get the little
work.
check mark in there, that I know that's a way people like really perk up.
They love that shit.
They
Yeah,
do.
we just gotta do that. I do want to finish with one thing. Sorry, Chris, you have one.
Yeah, if you have time, I just wanted to ask one quick question, college hockey related.
Fire away,
This
brother.
is this is the time of year where we have a number of like people that are. Hold on, just one quick second here.
Mm-hmm.
So
You okay, Chris?
yeah, I'm trying to get my wife all set up here to write a test, and I forgot the MacBook charger. So if she doesn't kill me before I quickly ask
Jeez.
this question, this is the time of year where the trade deadline stuff is over, and we're kind of moving on to almost like the dog days of the season. Something that I think a lot of people look forward to are college free agents that
Mm-hmm.
might spark some excitement with some teams. Is there any college free agents that you might be able to speak a little bit about that teams should be excited for?
I don't know. I don't know if this is like a bit you're doing, but literally, Elite Prospects just published our like college free agent guide today.
Not a bit at all, I promise.
No, it's funny because like you know, it literally came out today, and I'm just pulling it up now, and I'm happy to fucking read you all 20 of them or whatever. You know what I mean? Dartmouth's Luke Hames is a name that he's like a Toronto area guy, I think, and they've talked about him a little bit on like 32 Thoughts once or twice. He's a big boy, and he's a center, and he's like young for a college free agent. He's on the younger side. I think he's like 2021. People seem to he's number one on our list, and he's a guy that you've probably heard about on other podcasts and stuff like that. Carson Dorwart at Michigan State is another guy that been putting up numbers not just this year but like for a little while now, and just I think he's a guy who, you know, maybe not like a huge difference maker at the NHL level, but the dirty secret on all these like CHL and NCAA free agents is that most of them aren't, you know, like guys that you're excited about, your Jimmy Veazys and what have you. It's like, yep, Jimmy Veazey is a pretty good NHL player, and that's about it, you know?
Yeah, no,
It's
fair enough.
it's
Tyler
very
Bozak.
rare. What's that?
Tyler Bozak, probably the best of
That's
the bunch ever.
I'm for the non-goalie.
Maybe
Goalies
so.
tend to work out actually better than skaters do, and like sometimes the defenseman Christian Folin, who played for the Wild and
Right.
the Kings and maybe the Canadiens. He was another guy, like he played 2 years of college at like 21, 22 years old and went pro and like, played like 300 games or whatever. That's about as much as I would say you should expect out of most of these guys. Who else? Noah Beck at Arizona State, that we have him number 9 here. That's a really, he's a defenseman. He's just a good solid player. Let me see. Dalton Bancroft, that's a good sized winger out of Cornell that frankly I'm shocked he didn't go pro already. He's a good player and I was a little surprised to see him go back. But number 13 on the list, I don't know if you can see this. Anyway, Albin Boya, this goalie out of Maine, who for my money has been the best goalie in the country all season.
Wow.
He's really, really good. Basically has like 2 bad games, and like he took over as the starter like halfway through last season up in Maine. This is his second year of college, so year and a half as a starter in 2 years in college is really impressive. Maine's the number 4 or 5 team in the country right now. I don't think he's going to have like the juice at the end of the year to like win the goalie of the year award. But again, for me, he's actually been the best goalie, and his team isn't as good as BC or Michigan State, who are the other 2 guys that are going to be. So like Albin Boya, if I'm running an NHL team, this is a guy I'm really, really targeting. Like I said, I think goalies tend to be a little better at this sort of thing as long-term investments. So that I do not expect him to be back at Maine next year. I'll put it to you that way.
Dalton Bancroft is a name I have not thought of in many, many years. I
Okay.
used to work in the OJHL as a scout many, many moons ago. And
Okay.
his team used to absolutely fucking terrorize the team that I worked for.
Mm-hmm.
That was the season that I think he had like just north of 90 points for the Trenton Golden Hawks.
Okay.
And he was nasty. Like I remember when he committed, like a lot of people were like, "Oh, okay." Like thought that maybe there'd be some like more serious like junior hockey interest, but wow, yeah, you mentioning him has just kind of brought me down the elite prospects rabbit hole. And I will say I love the app. You've done great work with the app.
And
at
that's
Elite
me doing it
Prospects.
all. So that's really great to hear. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I figured you'd like that feedback. That's good.
No, he's I mean, the thing with Bancroft is he's 24. Yeah, I just pulled it up. He's 24, but he's 6'3", 210. That's a big boy. And he doesn't have a lot of developing to do, but like if you told me he turned into a Nico Sturm, there's another guy who was a college free agent.
Yeah.
Bemidji State, I want to say. No, that can't be right. Clarkson. He played for Clarkson. If you told me that like Dalton Bancroft had a Nico Sturm style career, that wouldn't surprise me at all. So yeah, that's a guy I've seen plenty of and I like quite a bit. So
Love it.
Yep.
Thanks, buddy.
It's all
My pleasure.
Yeah.
It's the whole job.
Plug the Elite Prospects page anyways. But let's just finish off with a little thing that we wanted to start doing with our guests, and if there's time anyways. Chris, do you have time for a little
I do.
4 of your guys? Okay.
I do. And I just want to
Okay.
quickly say that if you guys heard my wife kind of chew me out there for a second, I absolutely deserve it. That's the truth.
I didn't
show up,
hear
so
her.
that's okay.
You can rest assured I did not hear her.
Okay, well, she probably would have loved to have been heard in that moment, but in any case, I'm still with you guys. If you got a few minutes, I got a few minutes.
I'm locked in, brother.
So we had an idea of kind of going over, like, everyone has your guys in your life, your hockey players that you've just grown so fond of, but it's not the best players that you've come to like. It's players that you've just like liked watching so much. They might not be the best. They might not be have the most higher careers or anything like that. And maybe it's a guy that you enjoyed watching in college or other.
That's
people from junior, but
all of mine are going to be those guys for
okay,
sure.
perfect.
Yeah.
So we haven't done ours yet, Chris, but maybe we'll do that on a future episode because we don't have too much time left. But Ryan, we kind of want to know your 4 guys. If you had to just put 4 of them on a pedestal of just like, these are guys that I just obsessed watching. Not the best players, but yeah, just 4 guys, kind of go through them right now.
So I mentioned him earlier, Jake Wallman. I saw him play at Providence College. I was like, this guy's so fucking sick, man. And like, I just knew, it took him a while to get there, I'd say, but like his trajectory, throughout college, I want to say he missed like half a season at one point, and but at the time it felt like he was on track to be a Hobie Baker style defenseman. And then, at like 27, 28, 29, it seems like he kind of put it all together. And now he's, rightfully getting traded for first round picks and stuff. I feel vindicated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In my like I love that. I'm not gonna go like all current guys, because like a guy like Cam Atkinson was a guy that I just fucking loved watching him at BC. And then, there was a while there where like he was like 8th in the NHL in scoring over like in goal scoring over like a 5-year period, where like just quietly he was scoring like 31 to 33 goals a year for a few years there. And he was just, one of the smallest little guys you're ever going to see out there. You know what I mean? But a really fun player to watch, and just like, again, you could count on him to like score a lot of actually kind of sick goals, and you'd be like, where'd that come from? That guy did that? Wow. So that's another guy that I always kind of like. Chris Kreider is another one. Just like, that's a kid I actually saw play in high school, because when I worked at a newspaper, he literally played at Phillips Andover, which was right down the street. Like a mile and a half away or something like that. So I saw him play a couple of times, and just, that was one of those things where like he had a grown man's body, but was like 16 years old. And all these like, high school kids were just fucking trying to hit him and bouncing off and all that kind of thing. So he was so fast.
That's so sick.
Yeah, man, he was really a lot of fun. And then, again, if you had told me, oh yeah, there's a guy that's going to score 50 goals in the NHL in one season one day, I'd be like, well, there's no way that's true. But he fucking did it. What can you say? And then, I guess for my last one, I do have to represent my alma mater and say Connor Hellebuck. Again, when he was in college, he was like a 950 goalie. He only played 2 years. He only played 2 years, but he left school with more shutouts than losses.
Insane.
Isn't he doing the same thing? He's doing the same thing for this year too, for the Jets, isn't it? Like shutouts over losses. It's close.
It's probably
I think it was
pretty
close. Or
but,
like maybe it was a stat in it was a stat in December. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted. But
no,
yeah,
you're totally fine.
Crazy.
But like it's
crazy.
He's not like fun to watch, because he's not doing like, he's just like, oh, every puck hits me right in the fucking chest. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't he doesn't do anything like special except be insanely good at goaltending. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy how good he is, especially because like I said, I saw him play, and I was like, yep, that's a really good goalie. But I think he's a future Hall of Famer, right? He's about to win his 3rd Vezina. How many guys have 3 Vezinas?
Yeah,
it's like Waugh, Hasek, Brodeur. Like it's a short list especially for guys like I don't know if you know this. The Vezina used to just be the Jennings. Like both goalies with the most wins would just get the Vezina. And so there's a bunch of guys you've never heard of who have like 6 Vezinas. And you're like, how the fuck is that possible? And it's like, oh, he was the backup for the Maple Leafs in the 30s or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, great, But like voted on Vezinas, I think it's an incredibly short list of guys that like ended up, like winning 3 or more. And Hellebuck's about to be the 4th or 5th one ever. So the fact that he became a Hall of Famer is like fucking crazy to me.
Yeah. That's a perfect group of guys. I was like, and you said you weren't saying modern, but you did anyway. So,
Well, Atkinson is retired
No, I
now.
know.
I'm pretty sure. Am I wrong about that?
He's
Is he
playing in
still
Tampa.
plugging away?
He's on Tampa. He's like the 13th forward on Tampa, I think.
Is
He
that
Yeah.
got
so?
bought out by the Flyers.
I knew
Got
he
bought
got
out by the
bought out by
Flyers
the
last
Flyers.
summer, and then
How many games has he
just
played
signed a
for
little.
Tampa this year? He's played 37. So yeah, I think you're about right. Like he's
Yeah,
there.
he's just hanging out there.
Yep, 8 points in 37 games. Big salute to Cam Atkinson. I love that guy. I
Chugging
honestly thought he
on.
was retired. He's 35 years old. The passage of
Wow.
time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So good.
Anyways, that's it. Yeah, Chris, we'll eventually do our guys. I'm sure there'll be maybe some crossover, but maybe not. I don't know. I have a couple in my sleeve.
And also, if you ever have me
yeah.
back on, I will have 4 different guys that like occur to me at the time. You know what I mean? Like I'll just be like Gustav Nyquist.
Yeah.
I saw that guy at Maine. He was fucking sick. You know, like I'll be all.
Maybe
about
it just be a whole spin-off podcast of just like it's basically remembering some guys, but just like specifically guys that you just grew up watching so much. Like definitely one of my guys is Dustin Bufflin. That's
Big
like
Buff,
just
yeah,
a
he's so
quintessential
awesome.
what I love watching.
Yeah, again, just a huge
yeah.
guy that like no one can hit, right?
Yeah.
What's better?
If you're big, it can move. That's my fucking shit.
Yeah.
Lindros. Anyways. All right, it was so great having you on and kind of going over the trade deadline. All that stuff. Again, you're welcome back anytime. Please plug away everything, socials, what you're doing at EP, Puck Soup, everything. Just let the people know.
Yeah, Elite Prospects. I think there's some kind of a deal over there right now. I don't, you know, they give it to me for free, so I don't have to check, you know. But I don't know. I think someone it's like 33% off something or other. You can check it out. I'm sure it'll just like pop up when you go over there. Sign up for that. It's getting to be free agent season and draft season and all that. There's no better time really. I don't do any of like the scouting stuff. Like I don't put together these guides that, you know, everybody loves or whatever. So I can say honestly, like that shit's invaluable. Like I was using it before I started working there, and I continue to use it to this day. So now's the time to sign up and lock in the savings or whatever. And then patreon.com/pucksoup, all the bonus episodes, like Chris was saying earlier. We do a lot of stuff over there. I think we're mostly off this week because everybody I do one of those podcasts with is on vacation right now. So not me. I'm here plugging away.
You're in the corners right now. Yeah. Gritting it out.
That's not true. We actually, now that I say that, we have a wrestling podcast that we do over there called Superplex, which is a very funny pun that I came up with only. And we are doing the famous thing that was going around like 2 weeks ago. We're finally getting around to our favorite wrestlers from A to Z. So you want to talk about guys that I like?
Man,
I have my whole list, and I've had it written down.
I love doing that.
2 weeks.
I know everyone did it in the Wrestling Break Discord, and I nerded out for like a whole night of just like finding guys that specifically I love, and like
I really sat down and put too much time into it. Yeah.
Not a lot of eyes. There's like the one guy wrote for. Never mind. I'm not going to get into it. But
how many options did you have for the letter Z or Z, depending on where you live?
There are not many, but there's one that I don't want to give the content away for free here.
No,
but like,
and you shouldn't. You shouldn't.
There's
do that.
one that there's one that starts with Z that I think old Thomas here can guess.
Love it.
Current New Japan guy.
Calls people dickhead guy.
That helps.
Calls people dickhead.
Yeah, Zack Sabre Jr. That he was.
What am I gonna say? He's fucking awesome, right? Like
Zack Sabre Jr. Yeah.
I feel like there's like maybe 4. I'll tell you this. I'm not gonna say Zack Ryder. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's valid. That's valid.
There's only one other. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, I was just gonna say, like, very like not planned at all. I just have to just like also plug EP for just being the best. You guys getting an app this year, has made my life so much easier. I coach hockey outside of the podcast, and anytime we have tryouts, I just sit on EP for an entire day and try and figure out where everybody came from.
Mhm.
And that's just a little coach trick for any of the players listening. And we all creep you on elite prospects. And if you don't have a profile, then get one. And what I
It's
would
true.
say is it's it's genuinely one of the best resources that you can have. And the fact that you've made it so easy to have an app now is just like it's a dream. I'm in the app. I probably have
Mhm.
the app as an open application on my iPhone right now. I use it that often. So you want to pass that along to the powers that be. We love elite prospects. That's the
Well,
truth.
it's funny you say all that because we were just talking today. Well, not me personally, but people were just in like the Slack talking today about like how do we reach more coaches uh, in the off season or whatever. And it's like I don't know how many more coaches we need to reach personally, but I guess there's always more. So
Well, I
but
think it's one of these things where if how would I describe it? I think that what I've observed on my end is you have so many players that want to be able to put themselves out there a bit
mhm.
more,
Yep.
that it's actually more common now than I've ever seen to like begin a conversation with a kid at tryouts, men and women, because you're starting to see more women on there too, which is
Mhm.
great. And they actually like link you their elite prospects, or like they'll send a quick blurb, but you always get the link where they played, and wanting to make sure that the stats are accurate. And like even when I worked for teams in the past, it was kind of like, hey, get us a headshot, because it's like, our kind of standard to have you listed as the Northern Ontario scout on our elite prospects, right? So
Yep.
it's
Get
cool.
verified, all that shit.
Oh yeah, and I
Absolutely.
am verified, for the record.
You have
That's
to be,
really
man.
me on there, I promise. No, it's good though, and yeah, normally I wouldn't ride so hard for a particular publication or anything, but EP Rinkside has only gotten better over the years as well. And yeah, it's a great service, buddy. I'm glad that we were able to get you on tonight.
Uh, Look, I might clip this and send this to my boss and say, look at all the outreach I'm doing. Actually, I should get like
Yeah.
3 raises out of this, right?
Yeah, I like
But
it.
but to your point, it's funny because like anytime I'm at a game and someone sees I work for Elite Prospects, they're like, "Oh, I love Elite Prospects." I'm like, I have so little to do with that, but thank you. And they're like, I legitimately was just telling a kid like a college kid like last week, like you got to get the app. The app's good.
Oh, it's the best.
It's I'll put it this way, it's a lot better than the mobile site. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm done plugging stuff. That's fine. That's more, frankly, more than enough. So
I love it.
A big sale. Yeah. Thanks again, RL, so much
my
for coming on the
pleasure.
show. Anytime, welcome back. And yeah, we'll touch in again next week. I don't know what we have planned, but we'll talk about shit that happens. This has been Hosers 125, and see ya.